All right, good afternoon. My name is Jody Foster. I'm the Communications and IS Director for the Regional District of Central Okanagan, and I'm going to be helping to facilitate the meeting today, which is our White Rock Lake Recovery Information Session for residents. As we start the meeting today, I'd like to acknowledge that at our office here on KLO Road, we are gathering on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Central Okanagan people. And we're hoping to bring you some good information today about the northwest side neighborhoods that were impacted by the White Rock Lake wildfire. This information will be appropriate for residents of the Central Okanagan Regional District. You may find some of the information interesting to you if you're outside the area. There were a number of communities that were impacted by the fire, but if you are outside the Regional District of Central Okanagan, I would recommend that you also contact your local government to make sure that you're getting the services that are most appropriate for you from your governments. We're going to conduct the meeting much as we have in the last couple, which is to get updates from our various support staff from the regional district to let you know what's going on with recovery efforts in the neighborhoods. We're going to do this a little bit informally and just basically ask them for updates on each of a number of areas like water, our planning departments, assessments that are being done in the area. And then at the end, we've had some questions which have been posed to us at the recovery office that we'll also try and answer. And these are from residents throughout the area. So up first is Travis Kendall. He is our engineering manager and was also working with EOC operations and has been working to help coordinate recovery efforts at the regional district. So welcome, Travis. And if you wouldn't mind, can you give us an update on the water systems in the area and specifically what's happening with the regional district water systems, as well as with some of the private systems and wells and private intakes in the area?
Will do. Thank you, Jody. Hi, everybody. So the water systems for the communities of West Shore Estates, Upper Fintry, Shallow Road, and Valley of the Sun currently have no water advisories in place. Those systems are fully potable. Within Kalini Beach, the do not consume advisory does remain in place. The RDCO is working closely with interior health and specialized engineering experts to assess that system, ensure its return to a full and potable standard. Until that detailed assessment is complete, we are unable to provide any estimates on when the water will return to a potable standard, but we are working hard towards that. For the Estamont private utility, we don't have any new information to report. As of our last update, the Estamont utility had completed an assessment of that utility. There was some significant damage noted, including the destruction of their pump house. And then at that time, there was no timeline for the availability or the return to water, even on a temporary basis. Along that line of private water systems, some residents do have private wells. For those residents, we recommend you speak with your certified contractor to confirm the condition of your water system. And then lastly, for those residents without potable water, potable fill stations are available at the intersection of Furwood and Westside Road. We know that restricted water can be difficult, and those fill stations, they don't match the convenience and the necessity of having potable water in your home. So we're grateful for the patience that you're showing us while we work to recover that water system and while we all work to recover from that devastating wildfire. Thank you, Jody.
Thanks, Travis, for that. And can you tell me, do you have any information about the assessment of the Kalini system?
So right now we're working with an engineering expert, getting everything lined up so that we can complete that full and entire assessment. That's going to be quite an involved process. The system itself was potentially exposed to many different contaminants introduced by the wildfire and the destruction of some properties. So that'll be a very wholesome, very full and vigorous study, and At the end of that, we want with absolute certainty to return that water to a full potable standard with no question of the quality that's within that system. So still some work undergoing there. No timelines for completion. It's really going to come down to what comes out of this detailed assessment and what work has to be done to return that system to its full capacity.
Great, thank you very much. So that was a little bit about water. I'm going to introduce now Steve Shell, and he is the contractor that's working with us on a recovery basis as a recovery manager for the regional district. And Steve, can you please give us some information about what's happening with the fridge pickup? I understand it's just been completed, and what other waste options there are available for residents.
Great, thanks Jody, and good afternoon everyone. Yeah, so we've had some really good success on the fridge pickup. That program was so successful, we had to extend it to September the 9th. So that has now been completed. And what we're doing right now is working on getting the transfer station back up to regular hours, which will start on October the 1st. So the Northwest Side transfer station will be in place and set up for regular hours starting Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday from 8 a.m. till 12 noon. And then it'll go back to regular hours on Saturday, 8 till 4. So if there is any outstanding fridges, we're encouraging folks to bring those fridges to the annual bulk event, which will be from October the 6th to the 20th. The good news there is that there will be no cost to citizens, and we're willing to accept those fridges at that time. We've also been able to negotiate a partnership with Vernon Salvage to collect any steel at no cost, which is a great solution to support those citizens out there looking at some of those waste products. In addition, we're working on another initiative to look at the concrete waste. There will be a significant amount of that, and we've identified a couple of sites where we can have that waste properly disposed of and gathered. So that's what we have in place right now for that, Jody. Thanks.
That's awesome, Stephen. I think probably more details specific to come to residents around how they, where they need to put metal or concrete as those details get worked out. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, you can reach out to us at any time if you need more information, and check our website. We'll continue to keep that updated as time progresses.
Thank you. Yeah. And our website, we have all the recovery information at rdco.com/recovery. You're probably going to hear us say that website a bunch of times today, because that is where most of the current information will be available as soon as it comes. Just one more quick transfer station question. The Northwest Side residents have regular bag limits when the transfer station is open and operational in its normal hours. I'm assuming that when we reach the October 1st date, that goes back to normal bag limits for residents. Is that correct?
That's correct. October 1st is the effective date, back to regular hours.
Great, thanks. So the other thing that we wanted to let residents know is that the regional board also recognizes that it's been a tough go for residents in the area that were either evacuated or lost their homes. And there were staff reports that came to the board meeting last night, 3 actually. One was to talk about the action plan for recovery, and then 2 more, one talking about waiving fees for water use in our 3 RDCO systems, and one for demolition and temporary building permits. Steve, could you just give us an update on the action plan that went to the board last night?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jody. So yeah, the board was updated last night and briefed on some of the highlight details of that draft recovery plan. And it is in place following 7 objectives. The first objective is the most important, is obviously to protect the public safety. So we take that very seriously. The second objective is to improve health and wellness and support housing recovery. And that will be a significant one as people move forward, because their health and wellness is important as they move to recover their housing. The third one is to deliver permanent solutions. There will be some short-term fixes, but we need to have those permanent solutions going forward to resolve those situations. The fourth will be to facilitate economic revitalization. And this has had a huge impact on the economy, and we need to make sure we can get it back in place as soon as possible. The fifth will be to facilitate environmental resilience and adaptation, and learning from what we can move forward on, and then adapting to address those various situations, because each impact, it will be kind of unique in themselves. The sixth one will be to engage community and stakeholders like we're doing today. And it's important to keep those communication channels going, two-way communications back and forth, and moving forward and learning and sharing those experiences. And then finally, the seventh is to ensure fair and reasonable decisions in everything we do going forward. So those are the highlights that was presented to the board last night.
Great, thanks, Steve. And just to confirm for those that don't know yet, we have now set up the recovery office as part of that action plan. And Steve is working as the recovery manager out of that office. So next, just to recap, Travis, if you don't mind, just letting us know about what happened at the board last night regarding waiving water use fees.
Thanks, Jody. And thank you, Steve. Yes, so the board was first briefed on this on September 9th, and there was a request from the board to come back with some sort of fee forgiveness and fee waiver for those impacted by the wildfire and those wildfire impacted systems. So last night, for those three water systems I mentioned earlier, those that service West Shore Estates, Kalini Beach, and Upper Fintry Shallow Road area, Valley of the Sun, just want to affirm that the board did forgive water user rates, which is a portion of the total water fees for those three systems for the months of August and the month of September. So great progress there to support our residents and yeah, try to reduce some of the burden on them during what's been a really tough year.
Thanks, Travis. And then the third thing that we talked about at the board meeting last night was also waiving some fees that are going to impact people that lost homes or had substantial damage and are going to be rebuilding. And I'm actually going to just hand this over now to Brittany Lang. She is our senior environmental planner at the regional district and is working with a number of residents already who are going through the rebuilding process. So Brittany, can you give us a quick update on the building permits the demolition permit and temporary building permit that were waived last night, and also just if you can give us kind of a broad overview of what residents need to know if they're going to start that rebuilding process.
Yeah, absolutely, Jody, and thank you. Good afternoon, everyone joining us on the call. So as Jody mentioned, I work in the Community Services Department. So that includes the planning, inspections, and our protective services team. So I'll just give a very brief update, but I'll first start by noting a bit about what was discussed at the regional board last night. So it really comes down to the first step in the process for rebuilding and recovery, which is site cleanup. So a lot of residents have already started this process. And for this, a demolition permit from the regional district is required. So this is an important step as it ensures permit conditions are met with respect to hazardous waste, disposal sites, and any remediation requirements. So before that construction or demolition does start. We also use demolition permits for tracking purposes. So reporting that information to various agencies like BC Assessment and BC Housing. So last night at the regional board meeting, we are currently waiving any fees for demolition permits. So that will be the first step in how we can help reduce some of the financial impacts for residents. A second part of that is in terms of temporary occupancy. So we've been getting quite a few questions about the use of a recreational vehicle on your property. So the regional district does permit an RV, the use of an RV as a temporary building during construction. Typically, it's for a period of up to 1 year, and typically there has to be a single family dwelling permit issued and active construction occurring on that site. So recognizing that the process for rebuilding homes lost after the wildfire is going to take additional time, the regional board has approved an extension for the use of RV sites, on sites where that reconstruction is occurring, so from 1 year to 2 years. So the fees for temporary permits will also be waived. So if anyone out there is looking for additional information on this, I know we've already issued a number of demolition permits and our building inspectors are even offering to help post them on certain sites if folks aren't around. So please do connect with us. Our building inspectors and inspection staff can be contacted at 250-469-6211. You can also send us an email. It's inspection@rdco.com, or you can come in and see us here at the office on KLO Road. So Jody, that gives a bit of a background on what happened last night at the board meeting. But I'm just gonna talk a little bit about what I mentioned on previous calls we've had here and updates to residents. So in addition to receiving a demolition or building permit, if you're moving ahead with that, we know there's a number of properties impacted located adjacent to Okanagan Lake. And those residents have had a lot of questions regarding, whether or not their structures would be permitted to be rebuilt in the same location, particularly those who may have built within required setbacks of the day. So there are certain restrictions on the repairs and for reconstruction of those non-conforming structures. So, for example, if the building or structure didn't previously conform to a bylaw, so say it was built within the floodplain setback, if it was damaged or destroyed beyond 75% or more of its value above the foundations, it does need to be reconstructed in conformance with the current bylaws and also the most recent version of the BC Building Code. So I will just clarify that the required floodplain setback is 15 meters from Okanagan Lake, and also the natural boundary of any other, river or stream that may occur near your property. So typically that natural boundary is defined through a high water mark and through a legal land survey conducted by a land surveyor. So in terms of concerns related to meeting those required setbacks during the rebuild process, there are options for residents. You can make an application for a variance or a floodplain exemption. And again, that's why we recommend as your first step to reach out to staff. We can certainly provide more information on this process and sort of how to get you started down that path. So again, if you haven't already done so, you can also contact our planning department here. It's 250-469-6227. Or send an email to planning@rdco.com. And I guess I'll just close. We've been communicating already with a number of residents, as Jody mentioned, who are already beginning the process. We're also working directly with a lot of the insurance companies and trying to get them all the information that they need to continue to process everyone's claims. I think with that, Jody, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks very much, Brittany. And actually, that's a good segue into insurance. And Travis, can you tell us about letters that were sent last week to all the residents who had lost or substantially damaged homes for insurance purposes?
Sure can, Jody. So last week we mailed out a number of letters to those with confirmed destroyed structures, principal or major dwellings. Those letters included an aerial shot before and after, and a street-facing photo or from the street photo of the property to support residents with that insurance process. We did have a number of residents reach back to us for updated photos or different photos, and where possible, we're doing our best to accommodate those requests. At this time, I also want to flag that we do have insurance advocates available to help people with their insurance policies. They can be complex. There's a lot going on. And frankly, I know everybody's they're overloaded with what's going on. So we're trying to make it easier for everybody. If you need help navigating your insurance policy, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at 250-469-6111. We'll connect you with one of our insurance advocates, and they'll confidentially help you navigate through that policy and answer any questions you have regarding that insurance claim.
Thank you very much. And then the kind of second piece that's not us directly, but also recognizing that residents are needing help is that we've had a really great organization named Samaritans Purse that has been working in our area. Steve, can you give us an update about Samaritans Purse, the work that they're doing, and how long they might be with us for, available to residents?
Yeah, absolutely, Jody. Thank you. So last Tuesday, had the opportunity to go out to the site with Travis and see some of those operations that voluntary organization is doing. And I got to tell you, it's amazing work that they have been able to accomplish to support the citizens down there on their private properties. So they will be working out on site until October 1st. So I guess a recommendation to all of you that might need their assistance, please contact them as soon as possible before their departure on the 1st. and try and get them to support you if you need that assistance. Specifically, the services they are providing is for tree removal on private property. So if you have any danger trees that are on your property that you're not sure of how to address, they are the ones to support you in doing that. The second big piece of business that they're doing is also sifting for valuables in those burnt structures that burnt right to the ground, where you may have valuables in that home that that you are thinking about. They're able to actually get into those facilities and sift through the rubble and the ash and find valuables. In doing that part of the work, they need to pile the debris and remove any of those hazards, such as chimneys or overhead hazards, to make sure that sifting operation is as safe as possible. So again, seeing that operation in place and the work they're doing and the piling they leave behind, such as steel, to be picked up by salvage companies, it's just truly amazing, and it's a great service. A lot of the contact has been through word of mouth by neighbors, but if you are watching today, please, if you need their help, reach out to them before October 1st to get their services, because they are volunteers and they are doing a good service for us. So thanks, Jody.
Yeah, so October 1st, and if you do need their contact information, again, we're saying this a million times, but rdco.com/recovery has that contact information for Samaritans Purse as well. And then Steve, also, I understand that there are some assessments going on in the area as a whole after the fire. Can you let us know what other work, like assessments or otherwise, might be happening in the area right now that residents may see or want to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 assessments that are underway right now, and I'll speak to the first one. It's in regards to the provincial post-wildfire natural hazard risk analysis work, and that's work being conducted to take a look at some of the impacts of the wildfire itself, creating hydrophobic soils or water repellent soils, which could create landslides or mudslides as a result of any rain event or spring freshet. So the original overview assessment has been completed, and that information should be available to us sometime around October the 8th. And that will help guide where any detailed assessments need to focus work on specific areas and define what needs to be addressed at that point. So those detailed assessments will follow, and there's works in place right now to get those in place to make sure that that information is available to us as soon as possible, so we can get that out to the various parties that need to know and also figure out what kind of strategy to complete. The second assessment is the capacity needs assessment, and that will be starting shortly. We'll be having a number of individuals working with people directly to identify what some of their challenges are and what some of their needs are. So it'll be a private conversation between 2 parties, and that information will be kept confidential, and it will assist us in making sure we're getting the right information, as well as supports out to those specific individuals that have had a very traumatic season this year. So that will be underway very shortly. And the third one is the assessment of the water system, and Travis spoke a bit about that. So we'll be starting that work shortly. And again, that assessment will define what level of work we need to do and where and the extent and context of that work. So those are the 3 main big ones underway right now, Jody. And I think, we'll be seeing some more activity as things progress over the next few weeks.
Great.
Thank you.
Good. So those were sort of the updates that we had from our end on work that the regional district is doing. We did also say to residents, if you have questions for us, please either email us or phone us and let us know. And there are things that we can also try and address. So we did have a couple of questions from residents over the last couple of weeks. The first one, and we'll go to Steve, I think, with this one, is what do residents need to do with their septic systems, and how will they know if they're okay to use or if they need to do work with them?
Yeah, thanks, Jody. So yeah, very good question, and thanks for submitting that one. I think the first part of that is to, when you do rebuild any structure on that property, make sure that your septic system has been inspected by a qualified and registered on-site sewer practitioner. And there's a number of those available to do that level of work to ensure that your septic system will meet the capacity of that structure. If you plan to build a structure that is larger than what that system was designed for, those practitioners will be able to guide you through that part of it. So if you're thinking of using the existing sewer system that was designed for a house of, let's say, 1,500 square feet or 2,000 square feet, and you want to build one larger than that, the system won't be able to handle it. So that's where you need to make sure that you're getting in touch with those qualified and registered practitioners. If you plan to rebuild a structure with more than 70% of damage to that, again, you'll have to meet those new standards. So that is something to pay attention to as you're planning your recovery and what kind of structural impact you have. And you need to make sure that any new structures do not exceed the sewer's original design capacity. Again, I'll just stress that point, that you want to make sure that that system will be able to handle what you're trying to design with your new structure. So I hopefully that answered that question.
That does, I think. And I think the one other piece that we had give residents before is even if you are not, haven't lost your house, but you're concerned about your septic system, you can start by going back to the company that usually would be pumping it out and ask them to check it, or to point you to somebody that can check it and make sure it's all still functioning just fine. So this was a couple of residents on the lake area that were removing trees, and I'm not sure if this is Steve or Travis, but they had asked, will the regional district be getting a barge to collect material from lakeside homes? And I understand this was specifically in regards to large trees that were coming off some of the properties.
Right. So Jody, I can address that one. So I guess the straight answer is no. The regional district will not be hiring a barge to conduct those activities. We're being told that there is good road systems down to these areas that should facilitate that kind of an effort and that kind of a need. However, we did see insurance companies in the past have hired commercial barges to address damaged docks that we saw when the Okanagan Lake flooded back in 2017. So those insurance companies stepped in and provided that level of support. So if your insurance company is willing to do that to support that kind of effort, or if you need to do some effort on one of your docks that may have been burnt or damaged, that would be the route to follow. And like Travis said, we do have insurance advisors that will be on staff available to support any questions you have, or establish those relationships with that insurance company to make sure you're getting the best support possible. So that's how we're going to address the barge issue, and as well as where we can tap into those insurance companies to support your effort.
Great. So this is a water question. So we know that in the Kalini area, the Kalini water system still has a do not consume on it. Travis has let people know that we do have a location where they can go to get potable water. But there was some confusion about what do not consume means, Travis. Can you explain that?
All right, I'll do my best here. So a water system that's under a do not consume advisory, that water will not be made potable by boiling it. But that water is safe to use for specific purposes. It's okay to use that water for household cleaning, for flushing toilets. It should not be used to prepare food, to boil your pasta, to prepare your drinks. Any water that's under a do not consume order, simply put, shouldn't be consumed by you. It shouldn't enter your body. This is a precautionary advisory. And I mean, the intent of this is to protect the public after a water system has been exposed to potential contaminants. We know that this is inconvenient at the best of times, and following such an overwhelming and disastrous incident, wildfire, it's going to be hard for a lot of people to cope with this. So we're working as hard as we can and as best as we can to get that water system back to a potable standard, and we are grateful for the patience of the community while we're working towards that.
Great. And just a point of clarification is that I think you mentioned it, but boiling the water does not help. That's
correct. Under a do not consume order is very different from a boil water advisory. A boil water advisory is bacteriological in nature. You can boil the water and the hazard is removed and the water is potable. We're concerned about potential chemical contaminants post-wildfire, and boiling water will not solve that.
Thanks. A question that we saw a number of times from residents was people asking about their neighbor's property. So who is responsible from removing hazard trees on a vacant private property or on a property where the owners live out of town and somebody has seen a dangerous tree happen there? Steve, could you give us an update on that?
Sure. Thanks, Jody. So I guess the straight answer is that you need to make contact with your neighbor and have that discussion. And if you're having difficulty getting in contact with that neighbor, we can provide some support, not giving out the name because that is confidential information, but we can establish that contact with them and yourself and try and get that in place. The Samaritans Purse, like I mentioned before, is able to do some of that work on those private properties. And they will require the homeowner to be on site to meet them, however. So if you are a vacant homeowner, Samaritans Purse will not do any work on your property unless they're able to talk to you in person on the property. So if you are a vacant homeowner and you need to get in touch with Samaritans Purse, you have to be on site for them to do that work. So that's the kind of support for the private property, as well as how we can provide, the regional district can provide a connection between your neighbors in the community.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure I heard you say earlier that they are going to be helping out in our community until October 1st. So I guess we would also encourage residents then, if there are hazard trees like that, that they kind of contact us sooner rather than later, because we're down to just a few days before that, before they head on to other communities.
Yeah, absolutely. The sooner they can get in touch with Samaritans Purse, the better. Yes.
We had one question from a resident asking again how to get mail forwarded. If you've lost your home, obviously you don't have a mailbox, and where has mail landed and how do I get it forwarded? The answer that we had been provided is that there was some mail that was being held in the main post office in the city of Vernon. And you can also go online to canadapost.ca/mail forwarding. And at that address, there is a service that they will forward your mail to you to another location, and you can choose your period of time that you'd like that to happen to. So those are the questions that we had over the last little while that we were seeing show up. Just by way of wrap up, I wanted to mention one more time that we do have the recovery office open. It's available Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. There is a telephone number, which is 250-469-6111. There is our webpage at rdco.com/recovery, or you can email recovery@rdco.com. So all those three addresses go to the recovery office. We have understood that people are liking to get information like this via video because it's being live streamed right now, and then they can always go back to it later if they need to. So we're going to start doing these information sessions every second Tuesday. Sometimes they might be very quick if there's only a little bit of new information, or sometimes a bit longer if there's more. So 3 o'clock every second Tuesday, with our next date being Tuesday, October the 12th. And I did want to also mention that we've started a subscription where you can get e-updates right to your email box. And that is, again, at rdco.com/recovery. There's just a space where you go in and put your email address in, and then you're on the list to get emails from us. If you did receive that email and you don't want to anymore, you also have the option at the bottom of the page to unsubscribe at any time. So not a lifelong commitment, just as long as you're wanting the emails. So I think unless anybody else on the line has anything else they'd like to add, that is it for us for today. Again, visit us at the webpage, and we'll hope to see you in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Thanks, Jody.